The Gallant Few Rangers podcast is brought to you by Triple H Mortgages, the one-stop shop for all your mortgage and mortgage insurance needs. Contact them today on 01453 887 179 or hello@hhhmortgages.com. You can also find them online at hhhmortgages.com or on their Facebook page. Hello and welcome to the Gallant Few Rangers podcast. My name's Colin MacDuff and I'll be your host for today. Despite no actual football being played by the Rangers this weekend, there's still plenty to talk about. Joining me to do so is, first of all, Iain McCreadie. Iain, have you managed to fill your weekend with anything meaningful, or has it just been an empty, dark void?
Try to prepare my garden for the summer, just a wee bit of work at home, so getting ready for the 55 party.
Good to hear. I'll wait eagerly for my invite in the post. And second of all, the wonderful Craig McAdam. Craig, you suggested we do an early pod today since there's no game, and as a result, I've had to get up before 11 on a Sunday for the first time since lockdown. Suppose my first question is, why are you so cruel?
These things happen when there's nothing else to do at the weekend, so let's get up and do some podding.
Fair dues. So, Rangers hosted Antwerp for the second leg of our Europa League last 32 tie on Thursday night, and I think I speak for everybody when I say we all thought it couldn't have been as mental as the first leg, but by Christ, it gave a good goal, didn't it? Iain, for a sheer football fan point of view, looking back, this was a very entertaining tie all in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it had everything, didn't it? It had 14 goals, 4 penalties, is that right? 5 penalties? 5 penalties. 5 penalties. A red card. You just couldn't really make up that kind of scenario over 2 legs, could you? It was brilliant, but terrible at the same time, because you're just like, yeah, scored again, and you're like, no, they scored again. So it was as a non-neutral, it was a bit of a whirlwind, but I can imagine any neutral watching that game would be like, that was outstanding.
Aye, obviously it's like for any football fan, when it's your team, it's like watching a penalty shootout. When it's your team, it's horrible, but when it's 2 random teams, I love penalty shootouts, but that's kind of what this game was like. It's just with the emotion in it, it was probably couldn't enjoy it too much at the time, but looking back, it was fantastic. Craig, am I right in saying you signed up for the watch along with Clive Tilsley and Jermaine Defoe?
Aye, it was something a wee bit different, I suppose. Probably only done it to get the My Jazz points, because that's the sort of staunch bear that I am. But I only used it for the first half, because it was good to hear a little bit of insight from Defoe, and it was quite interesting, some of the stuff that he was saying, but it was also, I found it a wee bit distracting from the actual game itself, and there was that much going on. I decided the second half needs my full concentration, so it was good. Don't know if I would do it again, to be honest, but anything to get some My Jazz points, why not?
Did they provide commentary?
Nah, so they were just the app. So the technology of the app is that you sync it with your commentary on the telly, so that it's not out of sync, so you're not getting any spoilers or that sort of thing. So there was a slight delay on it, so they were maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 seconds behind what was actually happening on the telly, and it was just really them sort of having a chat, and as things came up in the game, Clive was kind of hosting it and just asking general questions about the team or sort of behind the scenes and general questions to Defoe about his career and stuff. So it was like quite interesting about what he was saying just in the lead up to half time, what will be happening now, who will speak first, that kind of thing. So it did give you a wee bit of insight into it. But as I say, there was that much going on in the game, having my phone open with that and watching the game at the same time, there was a lot to take in. So second half, I chucked it and just concentrated in the game.
Fair dues. So we'll get into the game itself. There's a fair few talking points. So, Iain, the first goal was a long ball for Goulson and some really good pressing for Hadji, and then even more so for Kent. Kent wins the ball back, cuts back to Morelos, who fires it into an open goal. So very well worked goal, but I think this leads me on to my first point. I thought your pressing and off the ball movement for the front three in particular were phenomenal all the way through the game, and that was them at their best.
Yeah, and I think when our front three are really pressing like that, I think that's when we play our best. We seem to do it a lot more earlier in the season when we were playing it better. We seem to do that really high press a lot more. It fell off a bit. I felt like Ross County recently, we done it really well. We pressed really high and quick, and we ran over the top of them doing it. And it's the same with against Antwerp. The front three for the first 20 minutes were just unbelievable. They were everywhere and creating chances and just not giving the Antwerp defenders any time to settle. And it pays off for the whole game, because you've got them rattled, and we take advantage of that by scoring 5 goals.
I think I kind of backhanded the criticism for fans is, right, we're so good at doing that, but why do we not do it all the time? But they would need to tailor their expectations, because if Motherwell, for example, are sitting with a 10-men low block, you can't really press too much if they're kicking the ball up the park. And from a physical point of view, you can't do that for every minute of every game.
Yeah, that's true. You're just good. Like, we rely too much on Kent, Morelos, don't we? Like, it's generally the 2+1. So if they two are just going all out, shutting down defenders every game, then, before we know it, they'll be burnt out, and we'll not be able to use them to their full ability.
So a very good start to the tie that put us 5-3 up on aggregate. So Craig, I want to cover off the 2 Antwerp goals at the one time, because I find it's really frustrating for both of them, because on both of them there's a big element of we just switched off. So the first goal, I think Aribo has to be more aware of what's actually happening in the game, and the second goal was just a clusterfuck really with McGregor and Golson running into each other. What was your thoughts on both goals?
Just before that, I wanted to, for the Morelos goal, the 2 Morelos goals really. So the first one he got and the Dundee United goal at the weekend, like, you could say, oh, that's lucky, the Dundee United one, the keeper's kicked it off him, or Kent's get the break of the ball, that's lucky that the defenders played it that way. But it's the work rate and the effort for the one that, although Kent get the break of the ball, it was Hadji that pressed first, and then that forced the defender to play the pass, and then Kent was on top of him, and then Morelos is moving, so although it is a tap into the empty net, it's not quite as simple as that. It's from the edge of the box, and it's the defenders right up against him as well. And then again, the Dundee United goal, it's that work rate and effort that you can easily just stop and stand still when the ball just gets kicked over your head. So it is good credit that there's a wee bit of fortune in it, and it's worked out for us, but we're making our own luck with that, with the effort that we're putting in. So the Antwerp goals, the first one, I felt there's probably 2 ways of looking at it. The Balogun at right back, he does get skinned, so is that poor defending from him, or do you put it down to a good bit of skill from Lukaku before he plays the ball in? So there's probably 2 ways of looking at that one, but once the ball's in the box, I'd say Aribo needs to get goal side of his man. I know he's more of an attacking player than a defensive player, but if you're tracking your man in the box, you need to get goal side so you can stop that wee flick that he got. But as I say, that
about that is, sorry, cut you off there. Did you see Hilander before they even get into the box? Hilander shouting at him to come in and pick up that man. So even before Balogun gets skinned, Hilander is telling Aribo to go in there, and that's what's most frustrating for me.
That's like, we've defended so well with Goldson and Hilander all season, but they can't do it all. So you do need to track your men and just the basic stuff. I'm not saying that Aribo was lazy with it or anything like that, but he just needs to be that wee bit more determined just to get goal side. And because as I say, the other way of looking at it was a good bit of skill from Lukaku, and it was a really good finish as well. But from our point of view, we could be doing better to stop that. And then touching on the second goal as well, it doesn't look good, does it, with McGregor going into Goldson? But at the same time, it's 3 bodies all coming together, and their striker just happened to get the break of the ball. So it wasn't a good position to be in, and you are taking a lot of chances by getting yourself stuck in that position. But they did get a good break of the ball, and their striker's done well to take it in his chest and finish it as McGregor wipes out Goldson. But if that exact situation happened again, and maybe McGregor gets to the ball first or Goldson gets it, so really it's a bit of a lottery when the ball just gets chucked in like that and his body's coming together. So the way it worked out, it doesn't look good for us, does it? But we can't really be too critical, I don't think, about how we've defended this season.
I think you're right. It's over the course of the season, their defence has been magnificent, but I think it shows that we will get punished for even switching off for that 1 second at this level and even going into the last 16, but probably not. I think as long as we take the learnings for every mistake we make, and I think this Rangers team have done that over the last couple of seasons, so probably not too much of a worry at the moment. So half-time comes at 1 each, and the second half starts with an absolute bang. Straight for kick-off, ball goes to Kamara, fires the ball into Hadji, takes a bit of poor touch and it eventually falls to Morelos, who lays it on to the on-running Patterson. Patterson then drives into the box and a perfect finish into the back post. So at this point, my first thought was probably the same as everybody else's. When the fuck did he come on? I didn't see the announcement of the sub. That was probably what surprised me the most. Ian, there's been a lot of chat, about Patterson's and Goon Bassey's inclusion in the squad in the first place, and we're going to come on to that. But before we do, from a footballing point of view, this is such a good goal, and from a player that we do have a lot of promise for, but we've not really seen him have too much of an impact.
Yeah, I thought he came on, he had a great game. I thought Balogun had a hard time in the first half, and I felt that they were maybe targeting him a bit because a lot of the attacks were coming down that left-hand side. And I felt that once Patterson came on, that stopped. They didn't really have too many attacks down the left. I felt Balogun. They've targeted Balogun, I think, just because he's a centre half playing right back. So they've thought it's maybe a weakness that they could get at. But Patterson, what he gives us is a more of a Tav like right back. Balogun just won't get forward the way Tav does, whereas when you put in Patterson, his ability's not quite the same as Tav, but his style of play is. So that having that similar style of player rather than a centre-back, it gives that team that balance again. I felt like that was there in the second half, that Patterson got forward more, and he defended really well when he had to as well. So yeah, his inclusion in the squad was a bit of a surprise, the three of them being in the squad, but they're served their quarantine time and they're available to play and there's no suspensions, then why not have them on the bench? If the plan to have them around going forward is there, then get them back in.
I know that this is a tricky one for me. See, with the benefit of hindsight, after Patterson getting that goal, it's obviously the right choice from a footballing point of view. But at the time, I'll be honest, I was quite disappointed that they were on the bench. I think it's, and I don't want to sound too critical with the manager or anything, but it did seem a bit hypocritical on when we look at how Jones and Edmondson were treated. Craig, what's your thoughts on it?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because I think we handled Jones and Edmondson right, but then hypocritical, if I can say it, it's probably the right word. Because for me, I would hate to see particularly Patterson, but also Bassey as well, getting written off, because I think they do have a big future, especially Patterson. I think he's got potential to be a long-term right back, and like even if you look at Scotland, there's no real contenders at the moment for right back, so I think Patterson's got a massive future ahead of him. So he's done wrong. He's a young boy, but I don't think we should just write him off. But then at the same time, I think we've done the right thing with Jones and Edmondson, and I would imagine Zungu won't be getting kept on. So it probably is a bit hypocritical to say it's okay for us to forgive Patterson and Bassey, but then write the other ones off. But I just think Patterson's got such a bright future ahead of him. It'd be stupid from the club to write him off. for me, the sort of best two young fullbacks in Scotland are Patterson and Doig at Hibs as well. So there's a lot of potential there that I just don't think we should be writing Patterson off. You look at England when Foden and Greenwood were away shagging in Iceland. You don't expect them just to get written off. They've been forgiven, haven't they? And you've seen the impact that the two of them have and the future that they've got ahead of them. So I'm not saying Patterson's at that level or anything, but it's a similar situation. What's happened for a young boy to come in, get a bit of fame and a bit of attention on him, make a stupid mistake, and I'm glad it's worked out the way it has. But hypocritical is probably the right word, because I wouldn't expect to see Jones, Edmondson, Zungu. I wouldn't expect to see them back in a Rangers top. So Zungu was a big surprise for me that he was involved. I assumed that'd be him until the end of the season, then his loan would expire and that would be it. So it's quite a tricky situation, isn't it? And the consequences of it could have been a lot worse than what they have been. But I'd imagine they'll be getting a big ban coming soon from the SPFL.
See on Edmondson, I still rate Edmondson. I was a fan of him, and I was, albeit it wasn't getting too much game time, but I think he could have been a very decent centre half for Rangers going forward. And I would still, now that the events have happened the way they have, I would like to see him back. If providing, I still think Golson and AN Other will go. I don't know if Balogun will be here long term, but I think we will lose at least one centre half, and I think Edmondson, he's playing quite well at Derby. I'd like to see him come back, but I suppose the point I'm making, what doesn't sit right with me is your level of punishment is determined on how good a footballer you are, because I think that's a very dangerous territory to go into. Like, we've seen it with Barry Ferguson back in the day, where because he was the most talented midfielder at Rangers, he thought he could get away with murder, but that wasn't quite the case. And I don't know if I wanted Patterson and Bassey written off, but it just seems as though they've got away with one.
Is it maybe a timing thing as well? Like, I feel like Jones and Edmondson were banned by the SPFL much quicker. It's been 2 weeks now since this story broke, and we've still not heard any kind of mention of what kind of ban they're going to be getting. So I'd expect it to be at least 7 games, like Jones and Edmondson. But also, we don't have any ability to loan these guys out. So when Jones and Edmondson fell foul of the rules, they had the ability to then be loaned out, whereas now the window's shut. So it's either basically just kick these guys into the reserves and not give them any game time anyway because they're suspended. I think that might be part of it as well, that they've not been punished yet, so they are free to play, but we can't really do anything else with them. We can't send them to play elsewhere.
That's true, and I suppose Jones and Edmondson, they weren't quite as necessary for the squad. So if you are looking at it, if you are being pragmatic, we had the other centre halves. Jones wasn't really worth a fuck the last 2 years, to be honest. So if we're being pragmatic, then that's probably into the thinking. But in the day, regardless what any of us think, the decision's been made by the club. I think everybody was surprised when the team was announced at 5 o'clock the other day. So back to the game itself. Iain, we'll start with you. Next goal was such a well-worked team goal, finishing with Morelos beating the defender and cutting it back to Kent. So it's a really good finish for Kent, but I want to sing the praises of Morelos here. I want to ask you, why is he so good in Europe? Is it a mentality thing, or is it how teams play? What is it about the Europa League?
It's not a Scottish ref, so he can get away with more. I don't know. Like Gerard said at the end of the game, it's who's watching as well, isn't it? It's how many scouts are turning up to watch any game other than a Celtic game for Scottish players? So I think it's that as well. It's to do with the audience, that he's going to, obviously, if he's playing well in the Europa League, he's going to get a much better move than he is playing well in Scotland. So I think it's partly that. I think it's partly he does get that wee bit more protection from referees. Like, we see him get a lot more fouls in Europa League, and we see him get a lot less against them probably. So I think it's a bit of a combination of that as well. But he loves the competition, doesn't he? I think I seen he was nominated for Player of the Week. So he'd be involved in 4 goals, wasn't he, when he was on the pitch? And eight over the 2 legs. That's ridiculous.
Phenomenal.
And the only one he wasn't involved in, he wasn't on the park. So, he does love the tournament, and hopefully he stays and has a wee crack at the Champions League next year.
Craig, on a similar sense, Ryan Kent is. I don't think you can pinpoint Ryan Kent just to the Europa League, but the other night, I think if it wasn't for Morelos, Kent would have been my man in the match. He just loves a big game, didn't he?
He was excellent. But you're right, like Morelos was phenomenal. When he's in that form, so if you try and get tight to him, he rolls you, and then we win a penalty like we've seen. Or if you try and drop off and stand him up, he'll knock the ball past you and run by you, and just all his link-up play as well in the games. He's unplayable when he's in that form. I know we've maybe not seen it as much as we would have liked this season, but it was brilliant. So, as good as Kent was, he has just been overshadowed by that Morelos performance. But Kent, like, you look in the first 5 minutes probably before we'd scored, Kent had already had 2 shots on target. He's just so quick at shifting. You don't know what way he's going to go. He can go left, he can go right. He just turns so quickly. He's got that wee burst of pace as well. He's always confident, always wanting to take his man on. Even if it doesn't work out for him, he'll go again, and he just doesn't. He's relentless. He just doesn't stop. Just with the type of player that he is, some days it's going to come off for him, and he'll look like an absolute superstar, and other days he'll be struggling with it. But if he could consistently hit the performance levels that he did the other night, he wouldn't be at Rangers. He'll be going to one of the big teams down south or somebody abroad for an awful lot of money. So maybe him being a wee bit inconsistent is actually a good thing for us.
I think we spoke about that last pod, didn't we, about Kent, and the reason like it's frustrating is that bit of inconsistency, because we know that ability's there, and like Craig's just said, if he was consistent, he wouldn't be at Rangers. He'd be at a much bigger club, and thankfully is that wee bit inconsistent.
What Craig mentioned there was like how confident he is the other night, and I think that's something that we need to call out for the whole team. Also, we got to the last 16 last year, but we were still set up to kind of soak up pressure for the majority of games. This season, we've just looked so comfortable and confident in our own ability at this level. Even against Benfica, for the most part, we did look as if the team believed that they deserved to be there, and that's a massive difference. Iain, we'll cover off the 2 penalties. Bonner for the first one, and then Barisic, he was just being sound and gave the second one to Cedric Itten. So the Barisic one, first of all, is he ever going to change his side where he puts the penalty?
He's just trying to make every keeper think he's going to hit it to the right, isn't he? And then he's going to go down the left one day. But his strike this time was much more what I was expecting from him. It was just much more powerful, hitting the side net. It's just why I felt he should be the penalty taker, because I think he does. I don't think MD strikes the ball as well as he does in our team, and that for me is why I was always like banging the drum for him to be the penalty taker if it wasn't Tav. So yeah, Edger keep hitting them left. If he keeps putting them in the same spot as he did the other night, no keeper's saving it. So if he can keep doing that, then yeah, I'm happy for him to keep taking the penalties.
And he's another one that played quite well the other night, but I loved his post-match interview when he was talking about giving Itten the second penalty to like get his confidence up and in his goal. It was like a sound big brother trying to help the wee man out, wasn't it? It was fucking heartwarming. Craig, Itten straight down the middle. It's a bit of a gamble, but it paid off, didn't it?
As long as you get enough power on it, then it's a fairly safe way to take a penalty, unless the keeper just stands still, which they don't often do. Because I think he did get his feet to it, didn't he? Yeah. But if you hit it with that much power, it's 9 times out of 10 it's going to deflect off you and go into the back of the net anyway. So good to see him get a goal, because that's probably the only real criticism of him this season, that he's not got enough goals. But I feel a bit sorry for him just because he's not had a huge amount of opportunities. I know he had a couple of games recently, but the majority is coming on as a sub for the last 20 minutes, and he's always putting in a good shift and running down the clock and doing that sort of thing. So it's good to see him get a goal, and hopefully that helps build up his confidence. Just like Borna was saying in his interview, it's important for strikers to be getting goals and feeling confident.
Yeah, and it's been hard for Ethan this year because the competition he's got. It's not as if he's just there because he's not impressing training. He is doing well when he comes on, and the management team do think of him highly. But how Morales has been playing the last couple of months, and probably for the most of the season, came out of when he's been playing as well. It's hard for him to get game time, but I think he is definitely one for the future. Speaking on ones for the future, Scott Wright actually won the second penalty, and I thought he had another really good game. Ian, it's good I think the last couple of weeks I've been saying he's been playing well without having any actual input, if you get me, like not really creating anything. So good to see him with another good performance, and surely down for a start soon.
Yeah, I've been impressed when he's come on. He's very direct, doesn't he? He just gets the ball and he just kind of goes forward, which is obviously what we want to see. He just wants to score, but looks at be involved in scoring. He just every time he's always very forward thinking. I can't remember him going backwards at all. He just not necessarily head down and go, but he's just get the ball and go and drives at the defender, and I think the defender chasing back's just a bit overly keen, and that's how he manages to win the penalty. It's good to see him being involved in a goal. Like you say, he's not really had too many assists, or he's not had any assists or anything like that, but we've seen a bit of an end product from him Thursday night.
Yeah, incredible credits due. The majority of the Gallant few said we shouldn't bring him in January. Just one person that said they should have. Who was that? Oh fuck, that was me. That's why I'm in the big seat. So on to the draw. This really is an amazing achievement to be where we are, considering 2 years in a row into the last 16 of the Europa League, considering where we started from. The season before Gerrard took over, the highlight was Pedro's battle of the hedge. You know what I mean? So we've came on leaps and bounds. Just on hedges, Craig, what hedge brings you more nightmares? Niederkorns or Brecons?
Niederkorns. That's horrible, isn't it? Just that image is absolutely brutal. Pedro standing having a wee tantrum in the bush. That's horrible. Don't make me think about that. But what I would say, see just the run that we're on in Europe and under Gerrard, like in the last 3 years, like it's so enjoyable when we've got a European game. All the years I've been watching Rangers, no matter who you're playing in Europe, it's always been a bit nervous and a bit cagey, and even if it's a team you think we should be beating, you've never been fully comfortable and confident that we are going to beat them. Like even when you think of the Manchester run, that's one of my best memories as a Rangers fan. And it's difficult to be critical of it because it worked and it was so successful. But see the actual games themselves, other than Bremen at Ibrox and Sporting Lisbon away, the games weren't actually enjoyable. They were tense and nervy, and we were sitting in. The results were obviously enjoyable, and getting into the next round was enjoyable. But the 90 minutes itself was pretty tense and pretty nervy. Whereas now you're absolutely buzzing when there's a European game, just because you know. Not just the fact there's a European occasion, but it's the football that's going to be played and the way we're going to attack teams. It's like exciting to watch it, and I don't think we can talk that up enough, because even when you look at other Scottish teams in the past and how they approach Europe, it's always been a case of we're not really good enough for this. We'll need to sit in and defend and hopefully hit them in the break. But it's just been a breath of fresh air the way we've approached European football.
Ian, what I love most about when we have a good run in Europe, it does translate into the league form, and I think that's because this Rangers team love playing in the big occasion, and I think it's no coincidence that we had a really stale January and December and even early February in terms of performances. We were still getting the results, but it was so lacklustre and kind of lethargic, and we were kind of edging over the line. As soon as we come back into Europe, we go and scrub Dundee United 4-1, and I think that's a common theme, that Rangers are at their best when they've got these midweek games and playing in the big occasion. And am I looking too much into that?
No, I think you're right. I think just the momentum thing as well, like, we get a good result in Europe, and then it gives us that boost coming into the weekend game against, like you say, Dundee United. And then we go and scalp them, and that gives us another boost. And then we go into Europe again, and we win again. And then it just has that perpetual kind of motion to it. And we just keep going, and we steamroll our teams, and we get on a good run when we just play weekend Thursday, and we don't have those breaks like you were saying. We got a bit stale in January, February, and we had a lot of kind of free weeks and the odd free weekend. Like, so now that we're playing every 3-4 days, I think you'll see the best of us again.
So Rangers were drawn to Slavia Prague in the last 16 of the tournament. Craig, I'll come to you first. What's your thoughts on the draw?
In terms of like club names and prestige and that sort of thing, it's probably one of the better ones that we can get. So obviously still quite a lot of big names in the tournament. So it's probably Molde or Slavia Prague if you're wanting to go for the easier route. They're the ones that would jump out at you. But they've just put out Leicester, and Leicester are absolutely flying this season. I was having a look at their results as well, and I don't think they've lost a game domestically all season. The only defeats they've had have came in the Champions League qualifier and then in Europe as well, in the Europa League. So they're obviously going to be a good team. I'm not going to pretend I know much about them other than that. We've seen Sparta give Celtic a doing, but that probably doesn't say much this season. So Sparta Prague are a decent team, and Slavia Prague are, I think it's maybe 8 points or something ahead of them in the league. So they'll probably be a higher standard than them. So it's one of them. It's your head and your heart, isn't it? Do you want the sort of glamorous, one of the big names, or do you want to go for the sort of easier route to try and get into the next round? But at this stage, really, there's no easy games, is there? There's every team that's still in the tournament at this point, they deserve the credit and the respect for getting there. So it'll be a tough tie, especially, as I say, with them beating Leicester. They'll be buzzing after that, and they're doing well in our league, so we just need to see how it goes. But if we play the way we played the other night, we can be confident of giving anyone a good game and getting into the next round.
Ian, just building on that momentum, so we next play on Wednesday, which we're going to come on to, then it's Wednesday, Saturday, then it's the first leg against Slavia Prague, then we'll play the weekend again, then it's the second leg. I'm fully confident if Rangers keep this momentum up, then we're at least going to be in with a chance of taking the game to Slavia Prague.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see why we shouldn't. Why we should change at all. We should just stick with the formula that's working for us. I mean, I would say Benfica would be a better team, and we didn't change our style to play them. So why should we change? Let's go with what's a winning formula. Just stick with it. And you were saying there that they put out Leicester. I think Leicester didn't have our strongest team. No Maddison, no Barnes, who are at the moment Leicester's two best players on form. I don't think Leicester were taking it as serious as we are. But they did beat them. I had to look at the results, and it was the Michelin who put them out of the Champions League, and they absolutely spanked them. And I think we had a great result against Michelin, didn't we? Last year.
Yeah.
So they had the results in the group stage as well were like funny. They beat Leverkusen, then got hammered by them. They also managed to beat Nice away. So when they are going to be a decent team, like nobody's going to be an easy draw, are they? So I think it could have been better. It could have been worse for me, is the way I've looked at it. So yeah, I'd go at them. Don't change anything. Don't adjust how we play, because I think if you try and adjust how we play, it then has a detrimental effect on the team trying to play a different way.
What I'm looking for is on top of keeping the momentum going and building on the play we've been we've been shown over the last 2 games. I'm looking for Rangers to learn from the mistakes. In particular, Benfica. I mean, Benfica, you've seen the best and worst of Rangers, and you've seen a wee bit of glimpses like that against Antwerp as well. As long as we continue to work on the concentration, cutting out the silly stuff, because for the majority, we definitely are a team that should be in the last 16. And for the most part, we're playing absolute tremendous football. It's just the wee niggles here and there that will get us caught out. So as long as we continue working that, then I'm confident.
I think do you know what? We've defended really well this season, right? But I feel like in Europe, most of the goals that we've conceded have been mistakes. I can't remember a time where a team's just absolutely tore us apart. You know, like if you go for Kent's goal, they're like, we absolutely tore Antwerp to pieces with that goal. We've not had that. It's always been like a mistake. Where is it Balogun getting done too easy, and then Aribo not being goal side of his man, or is it the clash between the keeper and Goldson? No, it's the daft penalty like in the first leg. So I don't see teams tearing us apart. Like it's any goals we're conceding are down to our mental mistakes. So if we can cut out those mental mistakes, like there's no reason why we shouldn't beat Slavia Prague.
And here's hoping they cut it out then, and we're in the draw for the last 8. So before we get too ahead of ourselves, we do have our next league game against Livingston on Wednesday night. So we travel to the Pasta Palace for a 6 o'clock kickoff, man. I'm not going to make too much fun of their name when the big ridiculous point here is a 6 o'clock kickoff on a Wednesday night. What's the deal with the kickoff times this season?
I think just because there's no fans in the stadium, they think they can just get away with whatever time and we'll just deal with it. And it's bullshit, really, because we still, although we're not travelling to the games, we're still watching the games, and people have their work and you're having to rush away to get home for it. And even like I know it was the teams that requested it, but mine round about Christmas when we were kicking off and like 3 o'clock and random Wednesdays and stuff like that, it's just a bit frustrating because although people have their jobs and they're working, but you want to go and see the football as well, and it seems to just be because there's no fans in the stadium, they can get away with fanning about with the kick-off time. So hopefully next season we're back in the stadium and that starts. But Livy have got the cup final today, don't they? So hopefully that goes to extra time and then they can win it and then they can go out and get pished and be hungover for Wednesday.
Here's hoping. So Rangers will be without Kemar Roof, James Tavernier and Ryan Jack still, and I'd imagine we'd maybe have confirmation of the Pattersons and Goon Bassey bands, which will come our way. So, Ian, how do you see us setting up for Wednesday? Would you bring... talk us through who you have.
I'd maybe give Arfield a start just to get him more game time again, get him back up to full speed, because if we're going to be starting, we've got obviously a free weekend this weekend, but if it's going to be Thursday weekend, then we need everybody 100%, don't we? So I think the defence pretty much picks itself. I know Gerald said Balogun had a wee knock, but I'd fully expect to see him at right back again. As I say, I'd probably bring in Arfield, and I'd probably take out Kamara and just rest him again, because I think he puts in an awful lot of work during these European games. And then I'd probably stick with the front 3 since we've had the weekend off. It's always a difficult place to go to, Livingston, isn't it? We've not had the best record there over the last couple of years, and I can't remember any games we've gone and turned them over. So I think we need to go with a strong team. I can see them having a hangover from this game, no matter what the result is, either an actual hangover from winning it or a mental hangover from losing it. So it might be a good time to get Livingston at the Pasta Palace, as you call it.
Craig, Ian saying he'd want to go with the same front three, but I'd like to see Scott Wright come in for a start here, either side of Morelos.
I think I would go with probably more or less the team that started on Thursday night, because I'd imagine that will be similar to what's starting against Slavia Prague. So that's with no game this weekend. That means we've effectively almost had a week off. So if you think that's going to be the same team that we're playing the following Thursday night in Europe, I would go full strength with whatever team we're planning on playing that week. And then at the weekend, is it St Mirren at home we've got? So that game you can maybe make a few wee changes to keep us fresh for Europe. Because although it's never as simple as if we make changes at the weekend, we're guaranteed a win in Europe. It'd be good if it was that easy. It never guarantees anything, but we can probably afford, just with the position that we've got now, and we are going to win the league no matter what, even if it gets delayed a couple of games because we're maybe having a bigger focus on Europe than on the league at this point. I think that's worthwhile for us. So Wednesday I would go with whatever team we're planning on playing the following Thursday night, and then use the home game against St Mirren to make some changes if we need to.
Do either of you have a concern around Hilander? He's going to be playing in at centre half because we're short of options there. I'm a massive fan of Hilander, but I do think he gets caught out in the plastic pitches.
I'd imagine he'll start on Wednesday, and then possibly next weekend we might see Simpson come in for him to give him a game at Ibrox. I would stick with him for Wednesday night, I think.
Yeah, I've got no problem with Hilander playing. I think he's had I can think of one mistake all season that actually sticks out, and that was the Benfica game. And other than that, he's been excellent this season. So I've got no problem with him being in there.
Probably me just being too cranky since I was made to get up early. So rounding off the show as we always do, Twitter patter of the week, a chance to tell the listeners what's the funniest thing you've seen in the world of social media. So I'm going to start us off. After Morelos kicking the ball out in the name of fair play, Graham Bodman tweeted, Morelos obviously been watching Still Game, the episode where Tam gets electrocuted and starts being nice to every cunt. Enjoyed that. on the subject of that, when does FIFA Fair Play Awards start? The voting start, because imagine the shithouse of if Morelos wins the Fair Play Award.
Morelos can win that, and Ruth can win the Pukas Award.
Yeah, so Craig, what have you got for us this week?
It's maybe worth posting a link for this because I probably can't do it justice. But did you see the South African podcast getting absolutely ripped into Zunga?
No.
I'll send the link over, and it's maybe one you can tweet out so everyone can watch it. But basically, it's a South African podcast, and they're talking about the COVID breach from Zunga, and they don't hold back. They just get absolutely ripped into them. They probably come at it from being quite patriotic, and it's a South African going to a big club in Europe, and they want him to do well to make a pathway, and they're just absolutely fucking fuming at him. So I'll send you the link over, and you can tweet it out so people can go on and watch that. It's well worth a watch.
Ian, what do you have for us this week?
So my tweet comes from Printworks, and it's sale now on. Customer ordered these stickers in summer, but no longer wants them. Any offer considered. 10 in a row, 2021 champion stickers. It's good to have the South African correspondents back. We've missed that.
Yeah, I just hope we like Zungu most likely going that we don't like Rangers Twitter page doesn't lose like 100,000 followers because nobody in South Africa cares anymore. I think we were building.
There was when the COVID breach came out, there was loads of comments saying that we're unfollowing. If you go back and have a look at them, there's loads of South Africans saying that.
They're passionate. I'll give them that. Well, that'll bring us to a close for this week. All that's left to do is thank my two guests. First of all, Iain McCreadie, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And Craig, always a pleasure, never a chore.
Yeah, pleasure talking about the teddy bears.
And thank you to everyone for listening, and take care.